Houston was a lot of fun. The coolest part about that deal, other than kind of having exclusive access that Max hooked us up with, was just talking with Jan about the chronological sequence that team went through from spring training to winning that final game. And there's so many ups and downs and different stories and things that went to it. It was kind of mind-blowing, but also entertaining just to hear the whole thing. And really a lot of talent, but a lot of character, kind of like Jan Gomes. And it's no coincidence everywhere he goes, the team wins. The guy's loaded with character and has some savvy and feel for everything. And a lot of teammates like that too. So it was a learning experience, but more than anything, it was enjoyable.
Did he talk any about how that team was on the brink of elimination so many times and then just walked it back and ended up the last team standing?
I think by that point, he did mention it, but not in a dramatic fashion. It almost kind of like to them was understood that they had formed such a concrete bond by that point. You're sitting at home thinking they're out, and at no point are they thinking that in their dugout. And that all was preceded by, early in the year, thoughts of trading away guys like Max Scherzer and thoughts of being well out of the deal and regretting not having a guy like Bryce Harper and all those things. But, all the way to the stories that came with adding a guy like Parra that brought so many things to the clubhouse and personality to the team. It just was a storybook deal, and I think they thought they literally were just reading the pages. They weren't writing them.
What is Max doing so well at the plate right now in the field, and what do you think the moment was that he kind of turned that page and maybe flipped the switch?
He's gotten stronger. I mean, we had our official visits come in a couple weeks ago, and some of those parents almost got nervous, I think, that our guys are so much more physical than their young boys, and that's just by nature of age. But really, it's the guys who have had over a year with Coach Q in the weight room. They have a certain look to them, and I don't think it's a hulking or bulky look. It's more just a trim, lean, kind of angled look. And he's gotten stronger, but has maintained athleticism. And then the other thing is, he was one of a few guys this fall that worked so hard we had to kind of slow him down and tell him to not take as many ground balls or as many swings. And the last guy that comes to mind with that example is Andre. We had to do the same with him. So kind of good similarities there, a good person to be compared to, if you will.
Garrett talked about controlling his emotions. Have you seen him kind of get better at doing that?
I've seen him and some others do it. And there's a lot of money invested nowadays in the mental game or approach. And we've got resources at the university that are great for us. And we have coaches too that really get into it and provide examples or mechanisms you can use. But ultimately, it's just about self-awareness and maybe kind of watching what guys like players on the Nationals do that have success, or just in our conference, what works, what doesn't. And I think some of those guys realize those big ups and downs and erratic behavior just doesn't work. And you want to believe in yourself and you want to have quote-unquote swagger, but whatever you're going to do, you need to be able to do it 56 games. And hopefully for us, it's more like 65 or 70. And of course, for a starting pitcher, you could break it down to however many starts or relief appearances. But you need to be able to do something multiple times. This game isn't what can you do, it's how many times can you do it.
How exciting you guys get to go down to Texas for that Round Rock Classic, play such good competition early in the season?
Probably more exciting for the Texas guys we have on the roster. There's still kind of that flavor because of the background of our coaching staff. But I think Frank and Josh included, and even Coach Kivett, who spent time down there in the Big 12, and I've got family down there. But for the kids on our roster that are from Texas, pretty neat. But I think the other guys, when they got handed the schedule, are kind of geeked up about, they want to measure themselves, up against the best. And that's why they're here in our conference. But, we always talk about how proud we are of the SEC. There's other great teams out there, and there's three of them right there, smack dab in the middle of that thing. And one of them is basically kind of playing right in our backyard in Houston.
Anything come of those September walk-on tryouts?
There's a guy who's with us, and he's been a bullpen catcher every day, and to be honest with you, he's kind of cutting himself short. I went to a junior college. Some guys see that as a low status thing, and I played against Pujols and Burley in junior college. There's just as good a ball there as you can imagine, maybe just not as great at depth. And there's certainly not the resources that our kids have, but I like having Bradley around, but he needs to go play somewhere. And maybe if it's a junior college, he ends up back here because he's that good, he's athletic. But there were some good kids. We gave guys a look, and we ended up did keep someone around to help us. But right now, it's awfully deep in the outfield, the infield, and on the mound for us. So it's more about kind of sorting out who needs to be on the field for us as opposed to adding.
What's next? Is fall ball 100% over? Is it time to do workouts? What's next before the season?
It's a different period. You kind of emphasize what I told them as academics. I mean, I know that sounds like coach speak, but both my parents were teachers, and this is their time to finish strong and maybe catch up if those long days kind of put them in a hole a little bit. And then the weight room becomes the biggest priority for our program and almost every other in the country. We've done things a little differently on the field this year. In the fall, we played more scrimmages than I ever have been a part of. So there's still some little things we need to address. But this is really when we can get with some individuals and kind of break some things down that are specific to them, maybe not the entire team. And then when January rolls around, it's come back together as a team and don't look back after that.
What kind of fall did Sewell have as pitcher?
One that was shortened a little bit by some back discomfort, and got a report today from Woody that we have some answers for that and some solutions. And I think we're going to make some adjustments in the weight room. So I think getting to know these guys doesn't mean just learning what jokes they laugh at and which ones they don't. It's kind of knowing their bodies and how they handle different situations. And he's certainly bulked up a little bit, but everybody's not the same. So we've come up with some solutions, like I've said, because he needs to be out there on that mound. He's still in the hunt to be our number one pitcher. And your number one pitcher may not be necessarily your Friday guy. I know that sounds rare, but it could happen that way. But the bottom line is he showed that he's made a jump. He's one of our best guys, but there's other guys that showed that too. So he's going to need to stay healthy so he can be in that fight, each step of the way in January.
What kind of father do you think Sean Barrows is going to be?
I don't know. I know he'll be able to sit home and read the newspaper to his youngin' a little bit and make, well-informed sports decisions there. But he always seems to be in a good mood and is pretty even keel, unlike some of the coaches like myself. So I know that'd be a good environment to be at home as opposed to clipboards flying around and cuss words and things like that.
Looking back on the fall scrimmages against each other and against other teams, how would you kind of grade it? I guess, are you pleased with the way fall went?
I think pleased with the way the fall went because, the Fall World Series was very competitive, and there was very few days where we said, hey, if we were playing another team or we were being scouted or looked at, this would be a losing day. It just didn't happen that often. I think fatigue set in a couple times. But, the two games, there's kind of a bunch of different ways to look at it. Played extremely well against Clemson, not our best against Xavier. And there were circumstances that came with that. I think valuable learning experience and reading their evaluations, I think they got a good feel for what went on those two particular days, well and not well. And that can be powerful information come springtime. And then, lastly, we haven't talked about it, trying to keep a chipper attitude in front of you guys, but there were a lot of injuries and things like Sewell getting slowed down, Liam not getting to showcase himself. Heflin and Kirby are going to have to recover and hopefully be back in March. I'm probably leaving some guys off, but there were more injuries this fall than we'd had in probably the previous two combined, and none of them called for us to look at maybe we're doing too much or what about the weight room or it was all just some strange things like turning an ankle on a bag or going out for a football pass on a Saturday, just goofing around and turning an ankle. So I'd rather have them happen this semester than next semester, and hopefully that's the case.
Got time for two more, guys.
Pretty loaded SEC home slate this year. Just how exciting is that to be able to play such good competition and bring fan support here to Lindsey Nelson?
Yeah, you look at our schedule and you're kind of like, what the hell, man? They got something against us. But then you look at the other teams or where you're going on the road, or it's kind of all the same. So it is a little bit different flavor for each rival in the conference. But now that all the coaches and all of our players know what each program is about, you got 10 different rivalries that are going to show up on your schedule. And unlike that goofy football schedule, you see everyone about, every other year at the very least. So if they're not on the schedule this year, they're coming right around the corner. And I wouldn't pick out 10 teams I'd want here or there. It's fun to go see the other venues, but it's a big challenge because there's big crowds everywhere you go. And then you want to hold serve at home. So, another part that plays into that, to go on a tangent about it, in the spring, timing has to do with everything. And sometimes you catch a team at the right time that's maybe better than you, and sometimes you catch a hot team that you wish you could have played them a month earlier or a month later.
Going into your third year, feel comfortable as the head man?
I feel comfortable because I got Frank standing right next to me. So other than when the umpires are chirping back at us for being quiet, needing to be quiet, I like the people that I'm around. And I'd say the thing I feel most comfortable is not necessarily in my own skin, but the guys that again are surrounding me. And I've kind of stepped back and let them do more of their thing than I ever have, and that's tough to do. But that's why you hire people that are smarter and better than you. So I like where we're at as far as making progress in the program, but we're a long, long way away from being comfortable with the facilities, the roster, our culture, you name it. Doing interviews. So any advice you guys have, write it on a piece of paper and we'll throw it in the trash.